Hey, Wrangler 4xe fans, I got my recalls done on my Wrangler 4xe. I have this two-page list of things they did to my Wrangler 4xe. I have no idea what it is, but I know somebody I can call to ask a few questions about.
Chris, hello. That's you, man?
It's me. What's going on, Brandon?
What's up, man? I hope you're doing all right.
I am so far,
Good,
so
good,
far.
good. Glad to
Yeah.
glad to see you.
Well,
So
yeah, it's
what's
good
up,
to.
man?
Well, earlier this week, I went and I
Yeah.
did the recall, and
Okay. All right.
I
The
I
new
came
recall on the
home
four.
with yeah, and I came home with 2 pages of a bunch of garbage that I don't understand, and I'm sitting there going, "What in the world? What did they do to my Jeep?" And then I thought, I know the one guy I can call and ask that question of, and the guy that
Yep,
not only knows what that recall is, but has done it to his own Jeep,
that is
Brandon
correct.
Haneline. So,
That's
so
correct.
uh,
Well, I can enlighten you on the recall and all the other things that they did to it. It looks like, from my understanding, what you're talking about, did they do some updates on the computers?
they did the update and they did the what is it, the Y46 cable connector seal.
Y46. All right. So let's talk about the Y46 first. So the Y46 is a recall on the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. There's only on about 11,000 of the Wranglers, the 4xe electric vehicle only, and the plug-in hybrid. And it consists
So we
of,
know they made at least 11,000 of these.
that is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
That's right. So what's happening is there are two main connectors that go into the IDCM, and there are little rubber seals around that. And when they installed them, either they got installed too quick, or just something happened to where the O-ring could have got pinched. So what we have to do is we have to take the Jeep and you have to the dealership. And it is something I do recommend that you leave at the dealership, and that's what you did. Um,
Hmm.
we have to power the Jeep down. Okay, it is a plug-in hybrid, 400-volt battery. We have to basically just power the whole vehicle down. We go through a lot of different tests to make sure that the Jeep is powered down. There's no electricity that's grounded anywhere. There's a lot of special equipment with it. I thought you might call, so I actually brought some equipment here. As you can see, this stuff right here is what we have to use. You have to use this as you're powering, working with tools, trying to power the Jeep down. So it is something that is very intense and is very complicated. So it's something that, definitely leave to the dealership to do. If you've ever seen, like, popped up that rear back seat and that little square there, that's where we power down the Jeep, and that's something that you don't want to ever mess with. Leave that to the dealership and or to the professionals. This what they're doing. Okay, so
Yeah.
definitely don't ever mess with that little box there.
Yes, exactly. And that,
Yep.
just so we understand what kind of power we're dealing with. If we
Yep.
take the wattage, or we take voltage times amps. Wait a
Equals
minute, am I
what?
getting this right? We got a 17 kilowatt hour battery, so that's
That's correct.
17,500
Yep.
divided by 400. That's 43 amps that you could get. Did I do my math right? I don't know. I may be doing the math. So let's see,
So yeah.
17.5
So
times 1,000 is
it's a lot.
17,500
Right.
watts,
Right.
and we're going
Voltage
to
times
divide
amps
that.
equal what?
So yeah, and anyway, I saw a sign, somebody posted in the group, said, "Not only will this kill you, it'll hurt a lot as you die." That's
Yes. That's
that's
absolutely, because it is actually DC voltage. It's completely different than the AC. AC is going to
yeah,
really pop you and knock you back. The DC voltage latches on and just sends current straight through. So something you definitely don't want to mess with. And that's why we have to wear this protective equipment, and make sure the vehicle is protected also from
right.
anybody that's coming by, that maybe just technicians or anybody else is walking through the shop. That we're working on that vehicle. So on that recall, there's a
And
little O-ring that. Go ahead.
oh yeah, go ahead. You're talking about the O-ring,
Yeah, yeah.
and
The
that's on the
O-rings
ICDM. You mentioned the IC is IDCM or ICDM, which is it?
is IDC, an integrated
IDCM.
dual charging module, and what that does is does two things. So when you plug the Jeep in from the house or where a station anywhere, that's actually AC voltage, and that comes down into the integrated dual charging module, and it converts it from AC voltage to DC voltage. So the battery is DC, 400-volt DC. So that's what that does is change that. And then also what it does is it changes, sounds kind of crazy. It also changes the 400 volt DC electricity back to AC for the electric motors.
And
The electric motors are
three-phase AC. Yeah.
That is correct. Yes. So it's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, and people may not realize that's three-phase AC coming in. That's how that P2 motor can be both a motor and a generator, and
That is
a
correct.
brake, a deceleration device, as it can change its phasing on an instant and slow the vehicle down. So yeah,
that's one of my favorite features, by the way.
Yes, mine too. I had geeked out about that braking system more than the hybrid system. But and that's a blended braking system. I think we talked about that. I think Dan and I talked about that on one of the Ask the Expert videos.
Yep.
So if you're watching this, you can go watch one of those videos. I can't tell you.
That's right. I binge watch all of them.
And so they had to check that O-ring and make sure nothing was cut.
Right. So what we have to do is basically we have to power the Jeep down, and then we go in and we take the I think my darn camera's falling. No, we have to power the Jeep down, then we take the two main connectors, and there's a protective plastic piece that goes around it. We have to remove that and then see if the O-ring has been pinched. If the O-ring has been pinched, if you can see the O-ring from the outside, it's actually been pinched. Then you have to go ahead and remove that, replace that O-ring, and put it back. So that's something that just be aware of. They do. It is an inspect and repair, so they may not have to replace them. You don't on mine, I replaced, I think I replaced both on mine because both were pinched. But I've done a couple others where one was pinched and the other one wasn't. And then I've seen some where none were pinched. So it is an inspect and repair type of recall.
Could that, if moisture got in there, could any of our check engine light issues have come 100%. From that? Okay.
Absolutely. That's what it's, I think that's where it came from, or where it really came from is because maybe moisture or water, because that is under that 30-inch mark. And so if anybody had been out in the water, not in a pool though.
Not in the pool.
If anybody had been out water could have gotten up in there and caused a check engine light. Okay. So I don't know what it's from. I don't know if that's what it's from, but it could have been. Yes.
Okay. All right. So now we know what that is. And while they had it in there, of course, they got my ball joints, had a little click to them, not much.
Yep. We've seen some ball joint clicking.
They torqued and repinned those. So if anybody, you turn your wheel, do you sit still or do you roll a little bit to listen?
You can hear it either way. Okay. You can hear it either way. It's parking lot maneuvers is really where you'll hear it. It's a click, 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 like a pinging type of click.
Get in a parking garage where there's a lot of cement around you and real quiet and
You'll hear it.
So all these software updates, I feel like I have a little bit of a new Jeep in some of the drivability functions. So do you know what all these are? Like if I named them?
I think there's 7 different computers that they're updating, and I can't rattle them off all on my hand, but I know some of them. The powertrain control module was updated. I know that, and we updated that for some miscellaneous codes that were happening, some check engine lights and things like that were happening that were just miscellaneous, that were really nothing wrong with the car or the Jeep, but it was just, we had this code coming up. So a few things they fixed there. On the transmission, there was some updates for, I think it was a 2-3 downshift, somewhere in that range, something like that. Some shift enhancements, basically.
Like it can shift hard.
Yep. It's sometimes you could have felt it shift hard. They were able to fix that through a software update. They can fix a lot of things through software updates now, which is a good thing.
It's amazing.
We're updating the hybrid control processor. Also all the hybrid stuff gets updated. All the IDCM, all the modules for the hybrid stuff gets updated. And then I think the ABS too. I think we're working with the ABS also. And then the instrument cluster, I think, is one also, because it's got all to do with the latching button. Latching regen.
One of my favorites of the latching max regen. Yeah. And I got to tell you, it feels like a different max regen, and for the better.
Right. It could be. I don't know if they made any changes on it or not, but I do know that it does latch now, and it's definitely, I love it.
And operationally, I'm speculating. This is pure hypothesis on my part. It feels
Okay.
like an inverse curve.
Yep.
As you're slowing down, it feels like it is increasing the max
Yeah, it
regen.
does.
Instead of being like an on-off switch, it feels like the computer's in there saying, "Hey, I'm in this gear. I want to do this much,"
Right.
and when it downshifts, "Hey, I want to do it."
Yep, it does.
I actually noticed that the needle, how it dips down on the right side of the dash cluster,
Yep.
it would kind of dip down and almost be at a set point. And I have noticed, and it would slowly come off as the vehicle slowed. Now I'm
Right.
even seeing, depending on what gear you're in, how fast you're going, all this kind of stuff. I've actually seen that slip up just a little bit, and then a gear shift, and then it'll slip up a little. Like, it is actually
Oh, it's working.
variable and more,
Yeah, it's 100% variable based upon the load of the engine, the incline that you're at, just a lot of things that are involved, the speeds that you're going. Let's say you're on the interstate and you let off, right? And it has to be variable, Chris, because if it was the same as you're on the interstate versus, it stops a lot harder under 30 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
So when you're on the interstate, it just almost just like you're letting off the gas a little bit. But
Right.
if you let off that gas, and it'll actually bring it almost to a stop at 3 miles an hour from the interstate speed all the way to, getting off the off ramp. So if you don't have nobody in front of you,
I'm doing way more one pedal driving than I was before the update.
Oh yeah. It's an absolute great feature, and I'm glad they were able to get that fixed where it's latching.
Yes. And one of the things you were talking about, those gloves earlier.
Yeah.
One of the things I ran into was my original shop that I wanted to go to didn't have a particular tool that they needed.
Yes.
And that's something that's a safety precaution, right? What's
Yes.
that tool called?
So what that tool is called, it's basically just a multimeter. It's a Fluke multimeter, and it has some special capabilities. And what that does is when we power down the Jeep, we actually do what they call an isolation test. And basically what we're doing is we're testing the circuits from, I'm sorry, my darn camera keeps dropping.
Are you using the suction cup mount?
I am. So what that is, the isolation test, what that is basically we're testing the battery to the actual chassis of the vehicle to make sure that no wire is rubbing at any point. So basically we take that and we measure from the positive to, with the gloves, from the positive to ground, then the negative to ground, and then we check both circuits also to make sure they don't have any voltage on them. So Yep. And then they have what they call, you check the voltage and ground first, and then after that you check the isolation test, which the isolation test is when you push this little button, it sends 1,000 volts, no amperage barely, but it sends 1,000 volts through this wiring of the tool to verify that it cannot complete a circuit.
Okay.
So if it cannot complete a circuit, then we know that we're good to go.
And that battery's isolated from the rest of the vehicle.
Yep.
There's no
Yep. Then you're isolated,
over.
and that's why it's called the isolation test. You're isolated.
Yeah.
The battery is completely isolated, and now it's safe to work on. You can take your gloves off and work on it.
Right. So if anybody watching this is having that issue that I ran into, I had to call around the area that I live in and find a dealership. I actually asked that question, like, do you have the meter that you can do this recall on? And finally found one that did. So that's something to share there.
They should have it. They should have it. If they're selling the Jeeps, it is a factory required tool to have. So they should have it, but some may not know where it's at.
Or the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, right? Like if the garage works on those.
Same thing. I mean, it's the same equipment that we're using for the Pacifica hybrids since 2018.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I knew I'd get an answer from you, and I knew by the end of this call I'd be smarter than I was when I started. So that's what it's all about, right?
Like we always say, we hope you're smarter now than you were when you started this video.
That's right.
All right.
Hey, thanks for your time, sir.
Awesome, bud. You take care. Anytime you need anything, just give me a holler.
All right. Well, take care.
Right. See you, man.
See ya.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as dialed.